when I was still living with my parents, something happened that I still can't fully explain. At the time, I was working odd jobs as a handyman in the neighborhood, trying to save up enough money to move out. It was a regular weekday, and my mom and dad had gone out for dinner. I had just finished a particularly grimy job and got home around 7:30 p.m. The first thing I did was head straight for the shower. I smelled awful, and there was no way I was sitting down to relax in that state. Our bathroom had one of those sliding glass shower doors, the kind that's frosted, so you can't see through it clearly. I turned on the hot water, stepped in, and started scrubbing off the dirt and sweat. About 10 minutes in, I heard my mom's voice call out from the hallway. She said something like, "I forgot something in the bedroom. I'll be quick." That threw me off because I knew my parents had been gone for at least an hour. They were at some Italian restaurant about 45 minutes away. I'd even waved goodbye to them before they left. I called back, "What did you forget?" But there was no answer. I stopped scrubbing and stood still, listening. I heard the faint sound of the bathroom door creak open. My heart started pounding. The door does not just open on its own. And then, through the blurry glass of the shower door, I saw the outline of a head just peeking in. It wasn't moving, just watching. When I tell you I froze on the spot, I am not exaggerating. My first thought was that maybe my mom really had come back, but something about the way the silhouette just lingered there felt wrong. I called out, "Mom?" But again, no answer. The head slowly pulled back, disappearing from view. I shut the water off, grabbed the towel hanging on the rack, and wrapped it around myself as fast as I could. My mind was racing. I wasn't sure what was happening, but I wasn't about to stand there and find out. I stepped out of the shower and called out again, louder this time. "Mom, Dad, who's there?" Nothing. The house was silent, except for the faint dripping of water from the shower head. I grabbed my phone from my bedroom and immediately called my mom. She picked up after a couple of rings, and I asked her if she'd come home for something. Her response sent a chill down my spine. "No, we're still at the restaurant. Why?" I didn't know how to answer. I just said, "Oh, nothing, just checking," and then I hung up. I stood there in my towel, dripping wet, and tried to piece together what was going on. The front door suddenly came to mind. I had closed it when I got home, but I hadn't locked it. We lived in a pretty quiet neighborhood, so I never really thought much about it. I walked to the front door and saw it was slightly ajar. Not wide open, but enough to notice. My stomach turned. Someone had been in the house. Someone had opened that door and watched me in the shower. I'll be honest, I was too scared to do anything right away. I'm not a small guy, but the idea of someone being in the house while I was so vulnerable completely shook me. I grabbed a baseball bat I kept in my room and went through the entire house, room by room, checking every closet, every corner, every hiding spot. No one was there. I locked the front door and double-checked all the windows. Then I sat in the living room with the bat and waited for my parents to come home. I did not tell them what happened that night. I'm not sure why. Maybe I didn't want to scare them, or maybe I just didn't know how to explain it without sounding paranoid. A few days later, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every creak, every shadow, every unexpected sound put me on edge. I finally decided to tell my parents, and they were understandably freaked out. We ended up installing better locks and even a security system. But by then, I'd already made up my mind to move out. I saved up enough money within a couple of months and got a small apartment downtown. And to this day, I have no idea who that was or what they wanted. The police did not find any signs of forced entry, and since nothing was stolen, they did not seem to think it was worth investigating further. But I know what I saw. That silhouette through the frosted glass is burned into my memory, and the thought of someone standing there, silently watching me, still makes me paranoid at any given time. I was home alone one weekend, and my parents were set to return Sunday evening. I'm not the tidiest person, and the house was a mess, so I had a lot of cleaning to do to avoid their wrath. By the time I finished scrubbing, vacuuming, and organizing, I was filthy and exhausted. It was pouring rain outside, and the time was just about 9 p.m. All I wanted was a hot shower to end the day, and then go to bed. Our shower is on the first floor, in a small bathroom with a single window that opens inward rather than sliding up or down. I'd cracked it earlier in the day while cleaning to let out the fumes from the cleaning products, but I distinctly remember shutting it when I was done. I grabbed my phone, set it up on the counter, and hit play on a podcast to keep me company while I showered. The bathroom filled with steam as the water ran, and I got lost in the rhythm of cleaning myself up. About 5 minutes in, through the sound of water and the rain pounding outside, I noticed something odd. The window in the bathroom was slowly opening. It was subtle at first, and I almost thought I was imagining it, but as the fog in the bathroom made it hard to see clearly, I could make out the outline of the window swinging inward. This truly worried me, as I knew I had shut that window earlier. Then my podcast stopped, and this sudden silence was jarring. I stood there, listening, and at first all I could hear was the rain and the sound of water dripping from the shower head. But then, faintly, I thought I heard breathing. It wasn't loud, but it was steady and deliberate. I was terrified as I shut off the water and slowly slid the shower door open. The cold air hit me, but I was barely fazed. My eyes were fixed on the window. It was wide open now, and the rain was blowing in, soaking the windsill and the floor below. I hurried to close it, trying to convince myself that maybe the wind had forced it open somehow. But as I turned to grab a towel, I saw something that made my heart stop. There were wet footprints on the floor, muddy ones, and they weren't mine. I froze, staring at the prints. They were bigger than my feet, and the mud in them was fresh, like whoever left them had just come in from the storm. My first thought was my phone. I'd left it on the counter playing the podcast. It was not there anymore. I started to panic. Someone had been, or still was, in the house. Wrapping the towel around myself, I bolted to my bedroom and grabbed my laptop to FaceTime my dad. When he answered, I was already in tears, explaining what had happened. He told me to stay locked in my room, and that he was calling my Uncle Rocky, who lived about 15 minutes away, to come over and stay with me. While I waited for my uncle, my dad tried calling my phone. We listened together, but it did not ring anywhere in the house. My phone is always on loud, and it had been fully charged. There was no way it could have died so quickly. And that's when it hit me. Whoever had been in the bathroom must have taken it with them. The wait for my uncle felt like an eternity. Every sound in the house made me jump, and I kept checking the windows to make sure it was still locked. When he finally arrived, I ran and let him in, barely able to get the words out to explain what had happened. He searched the house from top to bottom, but whoever had been there was long gone. The only traces were the muddy footprints in the bathroom, and the fact that my phone was still missing. I never recovered the phone. My parents were furious that someone had managed to break in, but they were also relieved that nothing worse had happened. But for me, it wasn't just about the phone or the footprints. It was the thought of how vulnerable I'd been, completely unaware while someone was just feet away from me in my own home. I've never felt comfortable showering when I'm home alone since that night. Every time I hear the slightest creak or gust of wind, I'm brought back to that moment in the bathroom, staring at those footprints. It's a feeling I wouldn't wish on anyone. A few months ago, something happened that I still can't explain. My cousin had asked me to dog sit for the weekend while he went out of state. It wasn't a big deal since I've done it before, and his dog is pretty chill. But the catch was that I needed to stay at his house to take care of the dog. I did not mind. He's got a nice place, and it's in a quiet neighborhood. It was the last night I was there. The dog and I were on the couch in the living room, and I was watching The Walking Dead. It was late, probably close to midnight, and the house was dead silent except for the TV. Out of nowhere, I heard this loud thud from upstairs. It sounded like a piece of furniture had been knocked over. My heart was racing immediately because I was alone in the house. The dog lifted his head but did not bark or growl, which was strange because he's usually alert to any noise. I muted the TV and sat there for a moment, listening. Nothing. Finally, I worked up the nerve to check it out. I grabbed my phone and headed upstairs. The house has 3 bedrooms and a bathroom upstairs, so I went room by room, and I checked my cousin's bedroom first. Everything was exactly where it had been the last time I'd been in there. The bed was made, the dresser untouched. Next, I looked in the guest bedroom. Same thing. Nothing was out of place. The last room was a small office, and it was just as clean and organized as before. By now, I was confused. If nothing had fallen over, what had made that noise? I almost didn't bother checking the bathroom, but something about the situation felt off. When I opened the door, I stopped in my tracks. The light was on, and the shower was running. Now, I'm 100% sure I hadn't turned on the bathroom light or the shower. I'd kept all the upstairs lights off since I'd only been using the living room and kitchen downstairs. And I stood there for a few seconds, trying to process what I was seeing. Did the shower just turn on by itself? That did not make any sense. Feeling unsettled, I walked over to the window to see if maybe there was some explanation, a prank or something. The backyard is pretty big and backs up to a small patch of trees. For a split second, I thought I saw someone running into the trees. It was just a quick flash, and when I blinked, they were gone. I can't even say for sure it was a person, but I swear I saw movement. I called my cousin right away. When he picked up, I asked if he ever had issues with the shower turning on by itself. He laughed and said no, the shower doesn't just turn on. I told him it was running, and his tone changed. He started asking me if I was sure, and I could tell he was getting freaked out too. While I was on the phone with him, standing there in the bathroom, the dog started barking downstairs. And it wasn't just a regular bark. He sounded like he was ready to attack someone. I ran down the stairs with my cousin still on the line. His dog was at the front door, growling and barking like I'd never heard before. His teeth were bared, and he was completely locked on the door. I opened it to see if anyone was there, but the porch and driveway were empty. I stepped out and looked around, but I did not see anything or anyone. By this point, I'd had enough. I told my cousin I wasn't staying there another minute. He told me to grab the dog and to go to my apartment if I did not feel safe. That's exactly what I did. I packed up my stuff, grabbed the dog, and left. We stayed at my place until my cousin got back. When I dropped the dog off, I asked him if he'd noticed anything weird since he got home. He said everything seemed fine, but he kept joking about the shower turning on by itself. I could tell he was trying to brush it off, but I don't think he believed it was coincidence either. I've gone over that night so many times in my head. I can't explain the thud, the running shower, or what the dog was barking at. All I know is I've never been so freaked out in my life.